I feel like Ghostbusters Frozen Empire has been written off as a lackluster sequel that did not deserve to be made, and I certainly understand that, but I wouldn't discount it entirely. It doesn't have the worst trailers in the world, but I think a lot of that comes down to how poorly this movie was marketed. Welcome to Sandwich Reviews. I'm the Talking Sentient Sandwich, and despite plenty of flaws, I had a lot of fun with this new Ghostbusters movie. They felt like underfunded animal control, which is the exact vibe that the film should be going for. Everything on that end was perfect. But there were way too many coincidental events that had to occur for the plot to happen and the villain to come into play, which made the movie almost unwatchable at times. There's also plenty of VFX ranging from great to meh, but there was also a clear push from the filmmakers for lots of practical work with the ghosts. Not all, but some, which I really appreciated. Also, the concept behind the villain is amazing, but I needed way more of him. And while there is plenty of context and sometimes forced exposition to show these relatively new characters to the audience, watching the previous Ghostbusters Afterlife movie is kind of required. Of course, that should be the case, this being a sequel and all, and the movie manages to create new and inventive lore in the universe, but I still wonder if this movie would work without all of the Ghostbusters nostalgia. Though, unlike Afterlife, this movie wasn't all nostalgia. So if you're a fan of the Ghostbusters franchise, definitely check out Frozen Empire, because I think it's good enough to make for an entertaining couple of hours. With that said, I want to talk spoilers, because there are a bunch of specific sequences and characters I need to discuss. I like the Robert Frost poem that they started with, making the story more cinematic to begin with, but it also felt slightly over-sentimental, a feeling that would only increase as the movie went on. I saved this for the spoiler section because the trailer pretty much hid her entirely, but I was not a fan of Phoebe's character. She's not necessarily the main protagonist of the story, but she was supposed to be the heart and soul of it, and instead of being that, she was just infuriating at times. Maybe it's a sign that I'm getting older, but her whole, despite being young, I should still be a Ghostbuster thing was just annoying. Every time she would get mad that she wasn't allowed to go out ghostbusting, I couldn't help but think to myself, this is dangerous, and she's way too young to be doing something like that. Like I mentioned before, she was meant to be the emotional core of the movie, and because I kept on thinking about how it's just too dangerous for a minor, there wasn't a whole lot of emotion in the movie. Mike from Stranger Things might have been able to back this up thematically, since he had a similar arc for his character, but he is barely in the movie, if at all. And speaking of being barely in the movie, let's talk about the villain. I loved his design, and everything about him in concept was phenomenal. The fact that the filmmakers pushed the rating with him alone was amazing, making him just horrific enough to haunt some kids' nightmares after watching this movie. And it was really cool to see a new aspect of how the Ghostbusters ghosts and ghouls work as well. But in the end, the villain came across as nothing more than an inconsequential stop in this franchise. They do a pretty good job of foreshadowing his coming and setting him up as a terrifying antagonist, but all the stuff with him and a frozen New York in the trailer is only the last 20 minutes of the movie. But when we eventually get to the third act and the villain actually comes into the movie, it's great. I just wish the rest of it was able to match that greatness. As always, thanks for watching. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe for weekly videos, and enjoy a delicious sandwich.